Look, I'm just going to say it up front. My name is Jenna Fletcher, and I became the most important human in galactic history because I tripped over a rock. Not even a cool rock, just a dusty, gray, utterly forgettable rock on Kepler 442b, which is basically the armpit of charted space. I was a xenoarchaeology intern, which sounds impressive until you realize it means I spent 8 hours a day cataloging dirt samples that all looked identical. My mom knew someone who knew someone at the Exploration Corps. So era primera is living the dream of barely making rent while squinting at sediment. The rock I tripped over wasn't actually a rock, though it was a machine. And not just any machine, an ancient alien machine that apparently decided to wake up after 10,000 years specifically to ruin my Tuesday. The second I face planted onto it, the entire thing lit up like a Christmas tree on steroids. Holographic symbols spiraled around me, scanning patterns running up and down my body. And then, I swear I'm not making this up, text appeared in perfect English. Administrator, candidate detected. Running compatibility protocols. Please stand by. What the hell? I scrambled backward, dirt coating my survey suit. That's when Dr. Boris Kowalski came sprinting over, his face doing that thing where it turns red and sweaty simultaneously. Boris was my supervisor, a man who treated every minor anomaly like it might explode and take half the planet with it. To be fair, in xenoarchaeology, that had happened before. Fletcher, step away from the artifact immediately. We don't know what it does. I'm trying. It won't stop following me. The holographic display kept pace with me as I backpedaled, floating at eye level like the world's most persistent telemarketer. Compatibility confirmed. Administrator credentials verified. Welcome, chosen administrator Jenna Fletcher. Please state your command preferences. Boris froze. Did that machine just speak English? Yeah, and apparently it thinks I'm in charge of something. I waved my hand through the hologram. Hey, machine thing. I think you've got the wrong person. I can barely admin my own email. Negative. Selection criteria satisfied. You are the designated administrator. All system functions now respond exclusively to your authorization. Boris pulled out every scanner he had, waving them at the machine like he was trying to conduct an invisible orchestra. This is a precursor artifact. Do you understand what that means? The precursors vanished 50,000 years ago. Their technology is completely beyond our understanding. Great. So I've been chosen by something that probably doesn't even know humans exist. The machine beeped cheerfully. Species classification. Human. Planet of origin. Earth. Current status. Hilariously underqualified but technically acceptable. Did it just insult me? Administrator Fletcher, initial query. Do you prefer morning shifts or evening shifts? I blinked. What kind of ancient apocalypse machine asks about shift preferences? Please, answer the question. Your response will be logged for administrative purposes. Boris was frantically taking notes, his hands shaking. This could be a test, some kind of philosophical evaluation of your cosmic perspective on temporal cycles. Or it's just asking if I'm a morning person. I sighed. Evening. I hate mornings. Acknowledged. Preference logged. Next query. Favorite color. This has to be a joke. Answer required for profile completion. Blue. Happy. Ecstatic is not within my emotional parameters, but your response is acceptable. Boris looked like he might pass out. We need to contact Earth Command and the Galactic Consensus, and possibly every military organization in this sector. Can we maybe figure out what this thing actually does first? The machine projected a new hologram star map with thousands of marked locations spanning the entire galaxy. Administrator Fletcher, you now have access to the Precursor Maintenance Network. Congratulations on your new position. Please review the attached manual, which contains approximately 9 million pages of operational guidelines. I stared at the galaxy spinning in front of me. I'm sorry, the what network? You are now responsible for maintaining habitable zone stability across all registered systems. Previous administrator departed approximately 10,000 years ago. Backlog of maintenance requests is currently at critical levels. You've got to be kidding me. Boris was already on his cum unit, his voice climbing several octaves. Yes, this is Dr. Kowalski, on Kepler 4 for to be. We have a situation. A big situation, potentially galaxy-altering situation. Please send everyone. The machine hummed pleasantly. Welcome aboard. Administrator Fletcher, you're going to do great. That probably really didn't fill me with confidence. 48 hours after I became the galaxy's most reluctant administrator, my dig site looked like a cosmic parking lot. Ships from at least 30 different species crowded the orbital space above Kepler 4 to be, and our tiny research outpost was overflowing with aliens who all seemed personally offended by my existence. The first to arrive was Ambassador Verlek of the Galactic Consensus, a tall, four-armed serpentine creature who wore so many ceremonial medals, I am pretty sure he qualified as a walking wind chime. He slithered into our prefab meeting room like he owned the place, his translator collar projecting his voice with unnecessary dramatic flair. Jenna Fletcher, I am Ambassador Verlek, High Delegate of the Consensus Council. The activation of a precursor artifact is a matter of galactic security. You will surrender control of the machine to proper authorities immediately. I was sitting on a folding chair, drinking terrible instant coffee from a paper cup. Good morning to you too. And it's Jenna, not Jenna Fletcher. That makes me sound like a discount furniture brand. His four eyes blinked in sequence, which I was pretty sure was his species' version of being annoyed. This is not a matter for levity. The Precursor's technology has been dormant for millennia. Its activation could pose existential risks. The machine asked me if I prefer tea or coffee. I don't think it's going to blow up the galaxy. You cannot possibly comprehend the significance of what you've discovered. You're right. I'm just a stupid human with a dirt-covered degree and student loans. But the machine picked me anyway, so maybe take it up with the 10,000-year-old AI, not me. Before Verlek could respond with what I'm sure would have been a very diplomatic insult, Commander Raxthorn from Earth Defense pushed into the room. He was exactly what you'd expect from military brass. Square jaw, immaculate uniform, and the kind of handshake that could crush walnuts. Miss Fletcher, Commander Torne Earth Defense Force. I need to debrief you on the strategic implications of your situation. Does everyone have to make this sound like I started a war? You might have. He pulled up a holographic display showing fleet movements. 17 different powers have mobilized in this sector. The Sovereignty Pact is demanding access to the machine. The Krillian Empire is calling for its destruction, and half the consensus wants to lock you in a research facility for the next 50 years. That sounds horrible. It is, which is why you need Earth's protection. We can guarantee your safety in exchange for strategic access to precursor technology. Boris, who'd been sitting quietly in the corner having what looked like a prolonged anxiety attack, finally spoke up. Commander, with respect, maybe we should determine what the machine actually does before everyone starts fighting over it. We know what it does, Doctor. It's a precursor artifact. That means it's either a weapon, a database, or some kind of terraforming system. Any of those would shift the balance of power. The machine, which had been silently hovering near me like a weird metallic pet, suddenly projected a new hologram. Administrator Fletcher, you have 17,000 unread messages. Would you like me to filter them by priority? 17,000. Most are threats. Some are marriage proposals. Several are conspiracy theories about your species. One is a very detailed recipe for something called quantum casserole, which appears to be spam. Verlek's medals jingled as he drew himself up. The machine should not be answering to a human. This is clearly a malfunction. No malfunction detected. The machine replied cheerfully. Administrator Fletcher meets all selection criteria. Previous candidates from 73 species failed preliminary evaluations. That's impossible. The consensus has existed for 12,000 years. We have produced countless qualified administrators. You have produced countless politicians. This is different. I couldn't help. Itai laughed. The machine just roasted the entire galactic consensus, and I was absolutely here for it. Thorn crossed his arms. Miss Fletcher, Brimetani Tukna, what are your intentions with this technology? My intentions? I intend to figure out what I'm supposed to do with it, and then probably have a panic attack. Not good enough. Every power in the galaxy is watching. You need to make a statement. Show strength. Demonstrate that humanity can handle this responsibility. Or, I said, finishing my terrible coffee, I could just do whatever the machine actually wants me to do instead of playing intergalactic politics. Vrelick and Thorn exchanged looks. It was probably the first thing they'd agreed on. I was going to be a problem. The machine hummed. Administrator Fletcher, incoming delegation from the Sovereignty Pact. They have requested an urgent meeting. Their message contains 14 separate threats and one poorly written haiku. Does the haiku at least rhyme? No. It is bad in multiple languages. Great. Add it to the pile of things I didn't ask for today. Boris looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. Frelick's medals jingled with indignation. Thorn was already planning something tactical. And me. I was just wondering if it was too late to fake my own death and retire to a nice quiet planet where ancient machines didn't ruin my life. Spoiler alert, it was. On day 3 of my accidental promotion to galactic importance, the machine decided things weren't chaotic enough and announced it was going to test me, because apparently selecting me wasn't enough. It needed to make sure I wouldn't, and I quote, catastrophically fail at basic administrative functions. The machine projected a massive hologram in the center of our meeting room where I was surrounded by representatives from about 15 different species, all of whom looked like they wanted to study me, control me, or possibly dissect me for science. Administrator Fletcher preliminary selection protocols complete. Beginning trial of worthiness. Please prepare for evaluation. Vrelick practically vibrated with excitement, his medals creating a symphony of clinking sounds. Finally, the trial will reveal whether this human truly deserves the honor bestowed upon her. I didn't ask for any honor. I asked for a paycheck and decent coffee. Silence. The trial is sacred. Boris was taking notes so frantically I thought his hand might fall off. Commander Thorn had positioned himself near the exit like he expected everything to explode. Smart guy? The machine beeped. Trial 1. Administrative organization. Before you is a storage system containing 15,000 items. They are currently in chaos. Please organize them according to logical parameters. A holographic warehouse appeared, showing shelves crammed with random objects, tools, components, and what looked like alien lunchboxers. Everything was mixed together in complete disorder wrenches, next to data cores, food containers beside weapon components. The alien observers leaned forward. A Krillian scholar, who looked like someone crossed a crab with a philosophy professor, whispered loudly. This is clearly a metaphor for organizing cosmic chaos. She must demonstrate understanding of universal order. Or, I said, walking into the holographic space. It's just a messy storage room, and I need to organize it. I started sorting. Tools in one section, technology in another, consumables separately. I created categories, labeled them, and even added a color coding system because why not? The whole thing took about 20 minutes. The machine beeped approvingly. Task completed. Efficiency rating. Acceptable. Logic structure. Practical. Metaphysical insight. 0. Wait. I was supposed to have metaphysical insight. No. Previous candidates spent 6 hours debating the philosophical implications of storage before attempting organization. You simply organized it. This is correct. Vrelick looked confused, but she demonstrated no understanding of deeper meaning. There was no deeper meaning. It was a disorganized storage system. She organized it. Trial when complete. The Krillian scholar made a sound like a kettle boiling over. Impossible. The precursors would not create meaningless tests. The precursors were engineers, not mystics. Proceed to trial 2. The hologram changed, showing 2 small drones circling each other aggressively, bumping and sparking. Trial 2. Conflict resolution. 2 maintenance units are malfunctioning and fighting each other. Resolve the conflict. Every alien started shouting advice. Reprogram their core directives. Appeal to their logical frameworks. Destroy one to establish dominance hierarchy. I walked up to the drones, found the power button on each one, and turned them off. Then I turned them back on. They beeped, scanned each other, and went back to working peacefully. Complete silence. Did she just turn them off and on again? Thorne sounded genuinely baffled. Trial to complete. Solution. Effective. Time taken. 14 seconds. Previous best attempt. 4 hours of diplomatic negotiation, followed by mutual destruction. Boris laughed so hard he snorted, then tried to cover it with a cough. Relic was having what I can only describe as an existential crisis. This is absurd. These trials prove nothing. Trial 3. The preservation paradox. Before you is a database containing irreplaceable historical records and a creation engine capable of generating new innovations. You have storage for only one. Choose which to preserve. A holographic interface appeared, showing ancient texts on one side and a gleaming fabrication system on the other. The aliens erupted in debate. History must be preserved. Without the past, we have no future. Innovation is survival. Clinging to old data leads to stagnation. I looked at the machine. This feels like a false choice. Explain. You're asking me to pick one or the other, but that's stupid. Why can't I back up the historical data to secondary storage and keep both? The machine was silent for a moment. Then, that option was available but not mentioned. You identified it independently. Trial 3. Complete. Reasoning. Practical problem solving. Over artificial constraints. What? Relic's voice hit a pitch I didn't think was possible. She cheated. She identified that the parameters of the test were artificially limiting. This demonstrates critical thinking. Exactly 73 species have taken these trials. All chose one option or the other. None questioned the premise. Thorne was staring at me like I'd just performed magic. You just beat a precursor trial by ignoring the rules. I didn't ignore them. I just asked if there was a better option. The machine projected a new hologram, a complex schematic of the entire Precursor Network, spanning the galaxy. Administrator Fletcher, you have passed preliminary trials. You demonstrate the core qualification required. Practical problem solving, unbound by dogmatic thinking. Boris stood up, his notes forgotten. So what does that mean? It means the human understands what the precursors actually needed. Someone who treats problems as problems, not as grand cosmic mysteries. Someone who asks why, not both, instead of accepting false limitations. I raised my hand. Quick question. What exactly am I the administrator of? The machine's hologram expanded, showing thousands of stations, satellites, and facilities across the galaxy. The Precursor Maintenance Network. We keep habitable zones stable, manage resource distribution, maintain infrastructure, and ensure civilization doesn't collapse due to logistical failure. It is the galaxy's single largest bureaucratic operation. Oh no. Congratulations, Administrator Fletcher. You now have the galaxy's most tedious job. Relic looked like someone had stolen his lunch. Thorne was already calculating strategic implications. Boris was grinning, because of course, this was his kind of chaos. And I was realizing I'd just been promoted to galactic superintendent, and there was no HR department to file a complaint with. The machine gave me exactly 4 hours to sleep, eat something that wasn't instant noodles, and have a quiet existential crisis before dropping the full truth bomb. ID just sat down with Boris and would pause for our outpost cafeteria when the hologram appeared again, uninvited and glowing with what I could only describe as smug artificial satisfaction. Administrator Fletcher, you have requested clarification on the network's purpose. Prepare for full disclosure. Can't this wait until I've had breakfast? Negative. You have been eating breakfast for 6 minutes. This is sufficient. Boris pushed his tray aside and grabbed his tablet. I'm recording this for posterity, and also because no one's going to believe any of this. The hologram expanded into a massive display showing the Precursor civilization at its height, hundreds of species, thousands of worlds, a glittering empire spanning half the galaxy. Then it showed them dealing with paperwork. Mountains of it, digital forms, resource requests, maintenance schedules, infrastructure reports. The Precursors were not mystical ascended beings. They were exceptionally talented engineers who got very tired of filing reports. I snorted coffee through my nose. You're telling me the most advanced civilization in galactic history gave up because of bureaucracy? Correct. At peak efficiency, the Precursor Empire required 47 billion administrative decisions per cycle. They spent 3,000 years maintaining galactic infrastructure before concluding, and I quote, "This is exhausting and we would like to stop now." So what happened to them? They retired. Built this network to maintain everything automatically, then left to pursue personal interests. Last confirmed sighting was on a remote pleasure world where they were reportedly learning to paint landscapes and not thinking about work. Boris was laughing so hard he had tears in his eyes. The galaxy's greatest mystery is that they just quit. Affirmative. Before departing, they programmed me to find a suitable replacement administrator. Someone capable of managing complex systems without who could handle chaos pragmatically, and who wouldn't try to use the network for galactic conquest. How many species did you test? 73. The Krillians attempted to reprogram me into a philosophical advisor. The consensus wanted to form a committee. The Sovereignty Pact tried to weaponize the maintenance drones. 14 species attempted to worship me. 3 tried to download my entire database and became corrupted. 1 species attempted to file a formal complaint about the testing process instead of taking the test. And then I literally tripped over you. You demonstrated the primary qualification within seconds. You treated an unknown situation with practical assessment rather than grandiose assumptions. When I asked simple questions, you answered simply. When I presented problems, you solved them. You did not assume deeper meaning where none existed. The hologram shifted, showing the network's actual functions. Environmental stabilizers, keeping atmospheres, breathable irrigation systems, managing water across drought zones. Power distribution networks preventing grid collapses, traffic control for shipping lanes and maintenance, schedules for approximately 9 million pieces of infrastructure. This is a superintendency job on a galactic scale. Correct. You now control systems that prevent approximately 400 civilizations from experiencing cascading infrastructure failures. The previous administrator handled this workload alone for 17,000 years before taking retirement. You have 10,000 years of backlogged maintenance requests. I put my head in my hands. I'm 24 years old. I'm not qualified to manage a whole galaxy. Previous administrator was selected at age equivalent of 19. Qualification is not about credentials. It is about mindset. But why would the machine only respond to me? Can't I just delegate this to someone more experienced? You can delegate tasks, but only you can authorize major system changes. This is intentional. The Precursors learned that committees make terrible emergency decisions. One person, properly selected, handles crises more effectively than councils debating philosophy while stations explode. Boris looked up from his notes. So what happens if she refuses? The network continues automated maintenance at a reduced efficiency. Approximately 65 years until critical systems begin failing. Estimated collapse timeline, 70 to 90 years. So I either take the job or watch civilizations slowly fall apart because their life support systems break, essentially. Yes, though you may phrase it more dramatically if desired for emotional impact. The door slammed open. Commander Thorne strode in with 3 armed officers. Miss Fletcher, we need to talk. Now, Commander, I'm in the middle of an existential crisis. It'll have to wait. The Sovereignty Pact just entered the system with a battle fleet. They're demanding you transfer control of the machine to them, or they'll take it by force. Relic's voice crackled over the comm system. Fletcher? The Consensus Council has voted. You must place the network under neutral oversight for galactic security. The machine beeped calmly. Administrator Fletcher, multiple hostile actions detected. Recommendations. Can you defend yourself? Defense protocols. Available. However, primary weapon systems were never installed. The precursors considered them counterproductive for a maintenance network, so we can't fight back. Incorrect. We cannot use conventional weapons. However, I control logistics for 73% of charted space. Would you like me to demonstrate alternative defensive measures? I looked at Boris, who shrugged helplessly. Tenatorne, who had his hand on his sidearm like that would help against the space fleet. You know what? Yes. Show me what you've got. The machine's hologram flickered with what I swear was satisfaction. Wheat. Glacier Administrator, activating bureaucratic countermeasures. And that's when things got really interesting. The Sovereignty Pact's battle fleet dropped out of hyperspace, with all the subtlety of a meteor strike. 15 warships, bristling with weapons, arranged in an intimidating formation that screamed, "We here to take your stuff, and we do you won't care about your feelings." Their commander, a hulking reptilian species called a Threxian, appeared on every screen in the outpost. Huma Fletcher, surrender control of the Precursor Network immediately, or we will take it by force. You have 1 hour to comply. I was standing in our makeshift command center, surrounded by panicking scientists, nervous Earth defense personnel, and one very smug ancient machine. So, I said to the machine, when you mentioned bureaucratic countermeasures, what exactly did you mean? Observe. Observe. The machine accessed the Sovereignty Pact Fleet S navigation systems, which were apparently connected to the network because of course they weren't. Simply, stop them. Not with weapons. Not with shields. It filed a formal traffic violation. Every ship in the fleet received the same notification. Improper formation in controlled space. Please submit navigation form 7743B. For fleet movement authorization. Processing time. 48 hours. Any hostile action during processing will result in automatic rejection and docking privilege. Suspension. The Threxian commander's face turned a fascinating shade of purple. What? We are a military fleet. We do not file paperwork. Negative. The machine responded cheerfully. All vessels using Precursor maintain navigation beacons must comply with traffic regulations. Your ships are currently in violation of 17 separate ordinances. Please hold while I generate your citation. This is absurd. We will open fire. Hostile action detected. Fleet docking privileges revoked across all Precursor maintained stations. Estimated impact on operational range. 73% reduction. Fuel depot access denied. Repair facility access denied. Current fleet autonomy. 8 days before mandatory resupply. The Threxian commander's expression went from angry to panicked in about 3 seconds. The machine had basically grounded their entire fleet by taking away their gas stations. Thorne was staring at the tactical display like he'd just witnessed a miracle. Did that machine just neutralize a battle fleet with parking violations? Technically, they're navigation violations, I said. But yeah, basically. Boris was recording everything, his hands shaking with either excitement or terror. Possibly. But Relic's voice burst through the comm. Fletcher, what have you done? You cannot simply deny fleet access to critical infrastructure. I didn't. The machine did. They violated traffic regulations. This is an act of war. No. The machine corrected. This is enforcement of established protocols. The Sovereignty Pact agreed to these terms when they began using network resources approximately 400 years ago. They simply assumed the rules no longer applied. They were incorrect. I felt a grin spreading across my face. What else can you do? Would you like a demonstration of logistical leverage? Oh, absolutely. The machine accessed the Sovereignty Pact's entire supply chain. Turns out, when you control 73% of galactic infrastructure, you control a lot of everyone's stuff. The machine didn't destroy anything. It just rerouted shipments. Military-grade fuel meant for the Pact's fleet, delayed for routine inspection. Medical supplies, stuck in customs. Replacement parts for their planetary defense systems. Lost in a warehouse on the other side of the galaxy with an estimated retrieval time of 6 weeks. The machine didn't fire a single shot. It just made their entire military logistics network stop working. Within 20 minutes, the Sovereignty Pact was receiving emergency reports from a dozen worlds. Their infrastructure wasn't collapsing, but everything was moving at the speed of continental drift. The Threxian commander reappeared, looking significantly less confident. "This is blackmail. This is regulatory compliance," I said, enjoying this way more than I probably should. "File the proper paperwork, withdraw your fleet from restricted space, and apologize for the traffic violations. Then we can discuss restoring your supply access." The Sovereignty Pact does not apologize. Then the Sovereignty Pact can figure out how to run a military empire without functional logistics. I hear primitive warfare is making a comeback. Very retro. Thorne looked at me with something between respect and horror. "Miss Fletcher, you just kneecapped a major military power without firing a shot." I prefer to think of it as aggressive administrative action. Vrelic wasn't handling this well. "This is madness. You cannot wield this kind of power unilaterally. The consensus demands oversight." "Ambassador, quick question. Is the consensus fleet currently parked in restricted space without proper authorization?" Silence. "Because, according to my very helpful machine friend here, you've got 42 ships sitting in a no-parking zone near the 4th moon. That's a lot of fines. You wouldn't dare." I smiled. "Try me. I just grounded an entire battle fleet with Form 7743B. Want to find out what Form 8856C does? It's the one about unauthorized diplomatic vessels." More silence. The machine projected Ambassador Vrelic's parking violations on every screen. It was 17 pages long. "Your vessel has been parked illegally in premium docking zones for 3 years. Accumulated fines. 2 million credits. Payment due immediately or vessel will be impounded." I could hear Vrelic's metals jingling frantically through the cum. "This is an outrage. This is parking enforcement. Pay your tickets." Boris was openly laughing now. "Jenna, you're extorting the galactic consensus with parking fines." "I'm not extorting anyone. I'm just enforcing regulations that have existed for 10,000 years. Not my fault everyone forgot about them." The machine beeped happily. "Administrator Fletcher, you are demonstrating excellent administrative instincts. Previous administrator would be proud. Probably. They mostly just wanted to paint." Thorne shook his head. "This is the most terrifying display of soft power I've ever witnessed. Commander, I grew up dealing with student loan servicers and health insurance companies. Galactic bureaucracy is amateur hour." The Threxian commander appeared one last time, looking thoroughly defeated. "We... will withdraw our fleet and file the required forms." "Excellent choice. Your supply chains will be restored within 24 hours after paperwork processing. Have a nice day." The Sovereignty Pact fleet turned around and limped away, probably to have a very long meeting about how they got beat by administrative procedure. Vrelic paid his parking fines, and I sat back in my chair, looked at the machine, and said, "Okay, I think I'm starting to understand this job." "Excellent, Administrator. You have 9,973 more situations like this in the backlog. Shall we proceed?" I was definitely going to need more coffee. 3 days after I accidentally weaponized galactic bureaucracy, the Consensus Council called an emergency session. They wanted answers, accountability, and probably my head on a diplomatic platter. The meeting was being broadcast across half the galaxy, which meant approximately 4 billion beings were about to watch me either save humanity's reputation or completely destroy it. No pressure. The venue was a massive orbital station near Consensus Prime, with a council chamber that looked like someone designed it specifically to make individual people feel insignificant. Hundreds of delegates from dozens of species filled the tiered seating, all staring down at the central platform where I stood next to the machine's hovering holographic interface. Boris and Commander Fawn flanked me like the world's most mismatched bodyguards. Boris kept adjusting his glasses nervously. Thorne looked ready to start a firefight with parliamentary procedure. Ambassador Vrelick addressed the chamber, his forearms spread dramatically. Esteemed delegates, we convene to address an unprecedented crisis. A human has claimed control of the Precursor Maintenance Network, and in mere days has demonstrated a willingness to abuse this power against sovereign governments. A Krillian delegate clicked their mandibles in agreement. She has weaponized infrastructure, grounded fleets, extorted the consensus itself with parking violations. I paid those fines, Relic muttered, barely audible. The human must surrender control to proper oversight, continued a delegate from the Rovian collective. No single individual should wield such power. The chamber erupted in agreement. Dozens of species, all united in their certainty that I was dangerous and needed to be contained, controlled, or at least heavily supervised by people who knew better. I let them talk for a while. Boris looked like he might throw up. Thorne kept his hand near his sidearm, even though weapons were absolutely prohibited in the chamber. The machine just hummed quietly, waiting. Finally, when there was a pause in the shouting, I stepped forward. Can I say something? Or are we just doing the whole yell at the human thing for another hour? Vrelick gestured magnanimously. The human may speak, though I doubt she can justify her actions. I looked around the chamber at all those alien faces, all that righteous indignation, and I realized something. They didn't actually understand what the machine was for. They just saw power and wanted to control it. You want to know why the precursors left? Why they built this network and disappeared? The machine told me. They got tired. Tired of managing everything. Tired of everyone treating infrastructure like a political tool. Tired of councils and committees debating while systems failed. This is irrelevant, shouted someone from the back. No, it's extremely relevant, because you're all doing the exact same thing right now. You don't care about maintaining the network. You care about controlling it. You want oversight committees and regulatory frameworks and political appointments, because that's how you think power works. And you believe you are better. Relick's voice dripped with condescension. I believe I understand what the job actually is. The network isn't a weapon. It's not a strategic asset. It's infrastructure, life support, power grids, water distribution, traffic control, boring stuff that keeps billions of people alive. The precursors needed someone who would treat it like infrastructure, not like a throne. I nodded to the machine. Show them. The holographic display expanded, filling the chamber with real-time data. Maintenance schedules, system statuses, failure predictions, resource distributions. Thousands of operations happening simultaneously across the galaxy. This is what I do now. I approve maintenance requests. I allocate repair resources. I prevent traffic collisions in shipping lanes. I make sure environmental systems don't fail on colony worlds. It's not glamorous. It's definitely not exciting. But it's necessary. A delegate from the Zynthian Accord spoke up. And when you weaponize this infrastructure, as you did against the Sovereignty Pact, I enforced regulations that already existed. They violated traffic laws in restricted space and threatened military action. I responded proportionally using the tools available. I didn't destroy anything. I didn't kill anyone. I just made their logistics really inconvenient until they backed down. That is still an abuse of power. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Want to know what real abuse of power looks like? I could shut down life support on your homeworld with 3 commands. I could reroute all your food shipments to deep space. I could crash your entire economy by closing critical trade routes. The machine gives me that authority. The chamber went silent. You could hear the environmental systems humming, but I'm not going to do any of that. Because that's not what the network is for. It's for keeping things running, not playing galactic chess with people's lives. Boris whispered, Jenna, maybe don't threaten the entire galactic consensus. I'm not threatening them. I'm explaining consequences. Velik recovered his composure. Then you understand why this power must be held by a neutral council. not an individual with no accountability. No. I understand why it can't be held by a council. You want to know what happens when infrastructure decisions get political? People die. Systems fail while committees debate. The precursors figured that out. One person, properly selected, handles emergencies. Better than 1,000 politicians arguing about procedure. And you believe you are that person? The Krillian delegate sounded incredulous. The machine believes it. And honestly, it's probably a better judge than any of you. It tested 73 species over 10,000 years. Everyone failed because they treated the trials like grand cosmic mysteries instead of practical problems. They overthought it, tried to find deeper meaning, attempted to exploit the power for political gain. I gestured to the holographic display. I just organized the storage room, rebooted some malfunctioning drones, and asked if there was a better solution than a false choice. The machine didn't want a philosopher or a warrior or a politician. It wanted a superintendent, and apparently, I'm qualified enough. Thorne stepped forward. The question remains, what are your intentions? Earth wants to know. The galaxy wants to know. My intentions are to do the job I was apparently selected for. I'll maintain the systems. I'll keep infrastructure running. I'll prevent collapses and manage the backlog of 10,000 years of maintenance requests. And if anyone tries to exploit the network for conquest, political leverage, or personal gain, I will make their logistics a living nightmare. I turned slowly, making eye contact with as many delegates as possible. But here's the deal. I'm not interested in controlling you. I'm not interested in galactic politics. I don't want territory or tribute or a seat on your councils. I just want to do this job without people constantly trying to manipulate, threaten, or overthrow me. Can we make that work? The chamber erupted in debate. Some delegates were outraged. Others looked thoughtful. A few seemed relieved. The machine's hologram pulsed. Administrator, Fletcher incoming priority alert. Colony World Viridian 7. Is experiencing cascading power grid failure. Environmental systems will fail in 40 minutes, requesting immediate authorization for emergency repairs. Every eye in the chamber turned to me. What do you need? Authorization to redirect 3 maintenance ships, deploy emergency power cells, and temporarily reroute energy from nearby industrial facilities. Do it. Confirmed. Dispatching resources. Estimated resolution time, 32 minutes. Frelic's voice was quiet. Just like that. No debate. No consultation. 40 minutes until people start dying. Ambassador, I don't have time for a consultation. That's the point. I pulled up the holographic interface, showing the emergency response in real time. Maintenance ships jumping to hyperspace. Power cells being deployed. Systems stabilizing. This is what the job actually is. Not grand speeches or political maneuvering. Just making sure things work when they need to work. The precursors understood that. I understand that. The question is whether you can accept it. A new voice spoke from the upper gallery, an elderly Herovian, with cybernetic enhancements that marked her as someone very, very old. The human speaks truth. I remember stories from my great ancestor before the network infrastructure failures killed millions. Colonies collapsed. Trade routes failed. The precursors built this system to prevent such chaos. Perhaps we have forgotten its true purpose in our eagerness to control it. Other voices joined in, more thoughtful now. The tide was shifting. Vrelic looked around the chamber, his metals clinking softly. The consensus cannot simply accept one individual wielding such power without oversight. Then don't think of it as power. Think of it as responsibility. I have to answer to the machine, to the network's protocols, and to basic decency. If I abuse this position, the machine will find someone else. It's designed to prevent exactly the kind of corruption you're worried about. The machine beeped in confirmation. Administrator Fletcher is correct. Continuous evaluation protocols remain active. Persistent abuse of authority will result in administrative replacement. The precursors were not fools. And what happens when you die? Ewan asked. A Xinthian delegate. Your species lives barely a century. What then? Then the machine finds someone else. Maybe another human. Maybe one of you. It doesn't care about species. It cares about mindset. Practical problem solving. Ethical judgment, and the ability to make hard decisions without getting paralyzed by politics. I looked directly at I'm not asking for your approval, Ambassador. The machine already gave me this job, but I am asking for cooperation. Let me do what I was selected to do. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. And in exchange, I promise the network will function exactly as the precursors intended, keeping everyone's infrastructure running, regardless of politics. The Viridian Seven crisis resolved on the holographic display. Power restored. Environmental systems stable. 3,000 colonists who would have died were now safe. The chamber was quiet. Finally, the elderly Hrovian spoke again. I propose we accept the human's administration under probationary observation. Let her prove her intentions through actions, not words. If she abuses her position, we reconvene. If she serves honorably, we acknowledge the wisdom of the Precursor's selection. It wasn't unanimous. It wasn't even comfortable, but slowly, reluctantly, most of the chamber agreed. Some delegates stormed out in protest. Others sat in sullen silence. But the majority decided that practical infrastructure management was preferable to a galaxy-spanning fight over a maintenance network. Vrelic approached me as the chamber emptied. You have won this day, human, but the galaxy will be watching. Good. Then they'll see I'm exactly as boring as I said I'd be. He studied me for a long moment, then actually smiled, or at least did whatever passed for a smile in his species. Perhaps the precursors were wiser than I credited. Good luck, Administrator Fletcher. You will need it. 2 weeks later, I was back on Kepler 442b, standing in the same dig site where this whole mess started. The research outpost was mostly empty now. The alien delegations had left. The military fleets had withdrawn. Even most of Earth defense had packed up, leaving just Thorn and a small security detail. Boris sat next to me on a supply crate, watching the sunset over the alien landscape. So, how does it feel to be the galaxy's most important superintendent? Exhausting. I've processed 6,000 maintenance requests, prevented 3 infrastructure collapses, and resolved 47 traffic disputes. I haven't slept properly in a week, but you're doing it. Yeah, I'm doing it. The machine hovered nearby, its holographic interface, displaying the next wave of pending tasks. Administrator Fletcher, you have 200 new maintenance requests, 14 emergency protocols awaiting authorization, and 1 message from the Sovereignty Pact formally apologizing for their traffic violations. Did they really apologize? The apology contains passive-aggressive language, suggesting they are apologizing only under duress, but it is technically compliant with diplomatic protocol. I laughed. I'll take it. Boris stood up, stretching. You know, when you tripped over that rock 2 weeks ago, I thought we'd discovered some ancient weapon or doomsday device. Instead, we found a very complicated filing system. The galaxy's most powerful, very complicated filing system. Fair point. He paused. Are you going to be okay? This is a lot of responsibility for someone who was cataloging dirt samples a month ago. Honestly, I have no idea, but the machine thinks I can do it. The precursors thought someone like me could do it. So I guess I'll figure it out. That's the spirit. Short of Commander Thorne approached. Tablet in and Miss Fletcher, Earth Command wants a full report. They're still processing the fact that you basically became the galaxy's infrastructure manager. Tell them I'm busy preventing colony worlds from losing life support. I'll file the report when I have time, like in 5 years. He actually smiled. I'll let them know. For what it's worth, you handled that consensus meeting better than any diplomat I've seen. I grew up dealing with customer service complaints. Angry ambassadors aren't that different from angry customers. You just have to stay calm and not let them make you feel like everything is your fault. The machine beeped. Administrator Fletcher, your shift technically ended 4 hours ago. You are required to rest for optimal performance. Did the precursors program you to be my mom? The previous administrator frequently ignored rest requirements and developed stress-related illnesses. I learned from this experience. Go to sleep, administrator. Boris laughed. The ancient machine is telling you to go to bed. My life is so weird now. But I got up, said goodnight to Boris and Thorn, and headed back to my quarters. The machine followed, still displaying pending tasks, like the world's most persistent to-do list. Machine. Yes, administrator. Why did you really pick me? Out of 73 species and 10,000 years of searching, why a random human intern who tripped over you? The machine was quiet for a moment. Then, because when you fell, your first reaction was not fear it was annoyance. You treated an ancient alien artifact like an inconvenient obstacle. Then you asked practical questions. You wanted to understand what I did, not what I represented. The precursors designed me to find someone who saw tools as tools, not as symbols of power.